Hello, everyone. My name is Abena Beloved Green, and I am here with Chantelle Rideout, who is the Manager of Programming and Member Services at the Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association, aka APMA. So Chantelle is here to chat about herself and her position at APMA. So welcome, Chantelle.
Thanks, Abena. Happy to be here.
Thank you for making time to do this. Chantelle's uber busy and uber organized, so we're going to get into her mind and figure out how it works. So Chantelle, we'll start with a little question about storytelling and stories. So I'm wondering if you're able to think of a childhood story that stands out to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I have a lot of stories I read as a kid really stuck with me. I don't know if you remember one that I think I'd say was especially one that sticks with me is the Robert Munsch cassette tapes. I used to listen to the Robert Munsch reading his stories on cassette, Murmel Murmel, The Paper Bag Princess, Promise is a Promise. Those are probably the ones that stand out the most to me. I had a booklet I filled out every year that my mom had for me, where you put your class picture and you'd write what you want to be when you grow up. And I would always write that I wanted to be a writer like Robert Munsch. So he definitely, those cassette tapes definitely made an impact.
Nice. Okay, so you had aspirations of being a writer from young.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. So tell us kind of in brief the story of Chantelle as it relates to how you got to become a writer, and then what brings you to APMA.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, yeah, I always loved writing from a young age. English language arts was always my favorite class growing up. And I did my undergrad at the Mount, same as Alexia, who you interviewed last week. I did my undergrad in English, and I was able to take a few writing courses there. They didn't have a lot of creative writing, but the couple of courses that they did offer really, really sparked something in me. And I was able to, in my final year there, learn a bit more about some graduate programs that also focused more on creative writing. So I ended up going to University of New Brunswick, where they have a master's degree it's kind of divided in two. It's half focused on the academic side, focused on English and coursework, and half focused on the creative writing side, and you write your thesis in creative writing. So I did my master's in English and creative writing at UNB, and then I did an MFA in poetry in New Hampshire at New England College. And then that felt like a lot of school, and would I be able to find a job something related to books and writing? So I was lucky to find an opening at the APMA, and I started as an admin assistant there, and then kind of moved up through managing some projects, and now the manager of programming and member services. Not a lot of creative writing happens in these positions, but it's really great to just be able to be part of that world, be inside the book industry, and being able to have a job in that field. I feel really lucky.
Nice. And I have many more questions now from that. But since you brought us to APMA, first of all, when you found the job, did you find that there were a lot of jobs out there? As you were looking, were there a lot to choose from to apply to? And if so, what were those titles? Or was it scant?
I definitely didn't see a lot, but I think I had set up some notifications I think it's Indeed or Career Beacon, where you can search for books, publishing, libraries. So, I mean, I definitely applied to Halifax Public Libraries. Probably there's a lot of positions that are posted there, and I probably applied to everyone maybe 45 times or something, just to, I was happy to shelve some books. I just really wanted to be able to find a position working with books. So I think there were a lot of positions in the library, but they do, I think, a lot of, some of them are internal, some of them are external, but there's such a high, they do get a lot of applications, I think. So aside from the library, I think I didn't see much else, but I set up some notifications to have book job descriptions that mention books or publishing or writing. And found one.
And so what does, we know your title again is manager. Well, first you started as admin assistant, you said?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're manager of programming and member services. So what did each of those, and does each of those roles entail?
Yeah, I mean, I think Alexia alluded to this in her interview as well. We're such a small team that it's definitely hard to sum up a position in a title at the APMA. So when I started as admin assistant, we were without an executive director. So it was really just Chris, our managing editor, and myself. And so it was, it involved just really trying to help out any way I could and quickly being able to take on more responsibility and more projects and programs, which is what I've kind of moved into now. But we were also for the last about 2 years without an executive director again. So although I did have one job description that I really do enjoy working on programs and member services, also filling in any way that I could in the absence of our executive director role. So it's a mix of everything, of funding, of reporting, of accounting, of lots of things I didn't expect that I would be doing.
Okay, I've just turned my camera off so I'm not distracting as I bounce the baby, but I'm here. So yeah, a mix, which is typical of working in a small organization, is that you have to do a lot and learn a lot. So what does right now a day in the life in your position look like, manager of programming and member services? What does that mean and what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So we are just starting off 2 new projects. And so we're doing a lot of scoping those, talking to funders, figuring out what these next couple of months can look like with our 2 new projects. So we are going to have one focused on promoting books in classrooms, getting local books into local schools and doing a promotional program around that. And one that's going to be working with the Nova Scotia Health Authority to get some accessible ebooks available to patients and their staff and the hospital staff and patients' family and caregivers so that they can all access local books and be able to discuss them while they're together on the ward. So those are just really in the starting phases. So we're, I think before we started recording this, I talked about how much we're on Zoom because we are working from home due to COVID-19. So we're just in the planning phases. So we are talking to potential contractors and consultants. We're talking to funders. We're talking to each other, trying to map out our plan and assign tasks. So it's really exciting. These are going to be some really fun projects with some really great results, we hope. But we're in the planning process, so it really evolves as we move more into the deployment process for those. My days will look quite different, and then we will start all over again with some new projects in a few months from now. So
okay, so it's pretty dynamic, like with
very,
projects happening. So it can change, it sounds, over the years or over the months, depending on what's going on. I love that idea, though. I think I'm good to sit down. Okay, so what would you say are some strengths of smaller publishing houses?
I think that they can really focus on a niche, if it's geographical, if they're really focusing on books published in their area by writers who live in their area or have a connection to their area, or if they want to really focus on a specific genre, then they're able to really, carve out that niche for themselves as a poetry publisher or as a beautiful children's picture book publisher. So I think it gives them that room to really carve out that space for themselves.
Nice. Okay. How does it feel for you? I mean, doing so many a couple different roles and so many jobs within that, so many tasks within. How does it feel like being in this? How long have you been in this position now?
Um, I've been at APMA
Or at
for,
APMA, yeah.
yeah, about 4.5 years now.
Okay,
Um,
that's pretty solid. So yeah, how does working among books and with books, how does it feel for you?
yeah, it's really exciting to get to see behind the scenes of so many different aspects of publishing. I think that there's a lot that I wouldn't have expected that I'd find myself in, and I think it's been so valuable to get to learn different, not just publishing specific, but even on the nonprofit side, like really getting to learn more about the funding process, about the financial accounting that goes in, so much work that goes into applying for and reporting on all of the grants and funds that a nonprofit depends on. And then also on the publishing side, really getting to learn the nuts and bolts of, a lot of the projects that we've done in the past couple of years have been focused on accessible digital books, because there has been a big fund on the national level from the Department of Canadian Heritage to fund publishers to produce digital books, so ebooks and audiobooks that are born accessible. So they don't need to be remediated after the fact to make them accessible for people with print disabilities, but they are created that way from day one, from step one. And so getting to learn all of the nuts and bolts of how to create an accessible digital book, there's so many little details and so much that's happening behind the scenes that I never would have known, and I never would have had the chance to really get to dig into and learn about. So it's all over the map. Like you said, it's so dynamic. One day I'm getting deep into an accounting spreadsheet, and another day I'm getting, digging into the code of an ebook to make sure that the image descriptions are working correctly. So it's really cool.
Okay, so that leads nicely into the next question. So you just mentioned accounting, code, so things that maybe somebody wouldn't typically think that they would need to know coming into this role. So can you tell me more about what you came into the position with in terms of like knowledge and skill set, and then what you've acquired since being there?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've all learned when we come into the organization, and even as we bring in different students and interns, is that there are a lot of those different things that you might not expect, but really being able to teach yourself and take that initiative is definitely the most important. So a lot of those things I just mentioned, I definitely didn't come into the APMA with as having experience with, or something I was skilled at, but being able to take the initiative to learn and teach myself. And I think what I came in with was more, especially coming into the admin assistant role, was more a background of books and local books from my regular life and from my schooling, but then being able to be really organized and detail oriented and having that bit of writing and editing background. But just at that, just those kind of basic, nothing that was really drilled into some of the specifics that I do now, but just having to be able to move on my feet and learn those things and apply them as quickly as possible, I think is the thing that's really valuable for someone who might not have that at the outset.
Okay. So yeah, really kind of being able to trust yourself that I don't have this now, but I will figure it out in the role and not be like stuck on words necessarily. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of professional development opportunity. That's one of the member services that we offer publishers, is professional development. And there's a lot of opportunity for staff, whether it's at the APMA or at a publishing house as well, to take professional development throughout the year. So there's a lot of courses that aren't necessarily university courses, but just, through different organizations that specialize in accessible books or book metadata, or sometimes even there was, I think, an accounting for book organizations. So there's these really specific, webinars or half days or things that are made available that are really valuable.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So would you say, this is one of Alexia's copywriting. She asked, is it necessary, do you think, or mandatory to have a copywriting certificate for copy editing? Let me look at it so I say it properly. How critical is it to have a copy editing course or certificate from Ryerson to break into the publishing industry?
I mean, I think it really depends if you're looking to what position you're looking to break into the industry with, and which type of organization or firm that you're looking to work for. So I think if you are specifically looking to apply for an editing position, especially with a larger publisher, then any kind of background that you have in editing, a certificate, a publishing degree, or a publishing course, I think is always going to be really valuable. But I do think there's opportunities to build relationships and build your knowledge base, and maybe start, you might not be starting in an editor role, but you might be starting at a different role that a publisher has open, and then maybe you have the time to continue to build your, maybe take some courses or build that relationship with the publisher to see if you might move into a different role as it opens up. So I think there's a couple different ways that you could kind of break in. It might be that you do see that opening right away for the specific job that you're looking for. But I do think what often might be the case is that there might be a role that's slightly different, or maybe more entry level, and maybe you don't need to have that background immediately for that position, but you can simultaneously continue to pursue those courses while you're also being able to break in a different role.
Okay, nice. So if I'm hearing you right, like it's definitely helpful to have, but not necessarily mandatory. So if you can get in, it's something you can acquire while you're there.
Yeah, I think you could. I mean, yeah, I think there's probably a small number of jobs, and sometimes, I think Alexia mentioned this as well, Canada Summer Jobs is a great opportunity to break in, because there's this funding. There's a lot of publishers and publishing organizations that are able to offer positions every summer through Canada Summer Jobs. And so for that position, you wouldn't be necessarily needing to have that certificate, but it could be a chance to break in, and then you build that relationship. They're familiar with you and they have another opening, and then maybe in the interim you're able to continue your education as well.
Nice. I like that. I like the learning on the job, or with the foot in the door opportunity. Chantelle, let's go back a little bit to let's go back to school and books and all the interesting things that you learned. So my next question is, let's talk about what did you do in poetry? You did a poetry program.
Yeah, I did a Master's of Fine Arts in poetry.
Master's of Fine. Okay, so tell me, what does poetry do for you? What role does poetry have in your life?
It's funny, there's another publisher who once said that all of us who are working here are lapsed writers or lapsed poets, which is not universally true, but it definitely resonated with me. Both of us had published a poetry book before working in publishing, and then hadn't had the chance to do much since. I think it can be really, you're working so much especially if you're working full time, you're focused so much on books and the book industry, and it can be hard to also do that creatively, to switch into evenings or weekends, finding the time to do that. So I think with poetry, it evolves for me have much more time for learning about which books are new, and promoting poetry and reading poetry now than I necessarily do for writing, but of course always hoping to shift that balance a bit. But one of the things I started at the APMA was, so actually, before I get into it, I'll just clarify a bit. So APMA is the trade organization that supports publishers in Atlantic Canada. So probably people, most people haven't heard of it. It's more the back end side for publisher support. The public facing that we hope that people are familiar with is Atlantic Books. So Atlantic Books Today, atlanticbooks.ca, that is the marketing and promotional face that, the work that APMA does to promote local books is all done under Atlantic Books. So we have an Atlantic Books Poem of the Month newsletter where we promote a different poem each month from a local poet who's just published a book recently. So that's been a really great way to get to keep up with and read local poetry books, making sure I find something new each month, while also getting to promote them and help people discover new local poets and new local books.
So how many books, like how many poetry books do you have to go through? Like, do you tend to go through to find one?
Yeah, so we receive books from publishers and from authors all year getting sent in. Mostly our managing editor, Chris Benjamin, is going through all of those books to put together a lineup for the magazine and sending those off to reviewers. But when a poetry book comes in, he'll always flag that for me. And we also get the publishers' catalogs each season. So what's upcoming for the fall or what's upcoming for the spring, and, browsing through those, highlighting any poetry books that are on there. So yeah, I'd say there's a good number of poetry books each season that comes out.
Nice.
We have lots of great poets writing and publishing with Atlantic Canadian publishers.
Cool. Well, tell us about your book. You said it's been published a while ago, but like, what kind of things did you write about? How did it come together?
Yeah, so it was a chapbook with Frog Hollow Press. They're based in Victoria, BC. It was mostly poems that I wrote during my time at the University of New Brunswick. So you write a final thesis or project that's a collection length set of poems. So I didn't do a full length collection. It was a chapbook, so a smaller size. So there was maybe 25 poems that I really liked from that manuscript that I had written for my thesis. So I pulled those out and published them as a chapbook.
It must have felt good, I think, after doing all that work. I just did I did a creative writing course and submitted, I think this was like years ago, to maybe CBC, and just like the satisfaction of like having poems and having revised them and edited them and like the content of them just feels good. So like, was it a similar feeling, like to see your final works all together?
Yeah, it was unexpected, I think, to be able to see the whole thing happen, pretty, not quickly. It does, the whole process takes some time from submitting to hearing back, but being able to, see the whole thing kind of unfold from starting the program, from writing those poems, delivering the thesis, and then being able to take the best ones and get them published. It's nice to see everything come full circle.
Nice. So is there anywhere that people could see these poems?
I think the chapbook, I think it's a long time ago now. I think it was 2013. So there's no copies left right now.
Okay. But it's out there. Some lucky few have them.
Yeah.
And what type of things did you or do you like to write about? If you had time, what do you think you would write about now?
Yeah, I've always loved lyrical poetry. So I really connect with, there's a new book of poems coming out from Goose Lane, actually. Sue Sinclair, she was writer in residence at University of New Brunswick when I was there, and she's now the head of their creative writing department. And she writes such beautiful lyrical poems, and she has a new book coming out that's both selected poems and new poems, and it's called Almost Beauty. And it's hard to sometimes, pin down when you write lyrical poems what you're writing about and what you're inspired by. But I think being able to look to poets that I really admire that do that so well, that write about beauty, that write so lyrically.
Yeah, so when you say lyrical poems, I mean, the word lyric is in there, but can you just explain what that is?
Yeah, just really, poems that are, I think, focused on, Sue Sinclair is a great example because she writes about beauty, but, we're really talking about poems that really resonate with people emotionally, and are really focused on that. Yeah, just, I guess that really sums it up, finding that emotional resonance, being able to connect with people on that level through your poetry.
Okay, so they don't necessarily have a particular form. It's more the content and the tone of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's, people definitely play with form and would still consider the poems to be lyrical, but yeah, not so much about the form, more about that emotional resonance and connection.
Okay, nice. So my final question is, are you reading anything in particular right now that you'd like to share with the people?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I always have so many books that are half open and half
Same.
Yeah. So I have a few. It's hard to pick one to talk about.
You can say a few. I always find it hard to list one or a favorite. So as many as you want.
Yeah, sure. It's hard. I also, I'm here in my Atlantic Publishers Marketing Association role. So I always want to really focus on local books and local authors that I'm reading too. So I will say that I'm it's so hard to pick one. I'll say, I guess I could say, some that I've finished over the past little while that were from local authors that I really loved was Dr. Cooper's Black Matters, Shalin Jodri's Waking Ground, 2 poetry books from local publishers here.
Nice.
And yeah, really looking forward to Sue Sinclair's new poetry book from Goose Lane, Almost Beauty.
I love that title.
Yeah, she writes such beautiful poems. Yeah, I'll say
That's good. You gave us 3: Black Matters, Ifwa Cooper, Walking Ground, is it?
Waking Ground.
Waking Ground by, how do you say her name?
Shalin Jodri.
Shalin Jodri, and Almost Beauty by Sue Sinclair.
Not reading that one yet, but I will be.
That's
March when it comes out.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, and so when you're not reading and around books and promoting authors and publishers, what are you doing? And not on
when
Zoom?
I'm not working. Oh my goodness. When am I not working? Yeah, I would say there's not a lot of off time right now, but hopefully, I would really love to be able to have the time to write again. And also other hobbies, I love sewing. I love knitting. I love, anything creative. But it's hard to find the time.
That's amazing. I feel like that's maybe it's not a lost skill, but it's less. I just admire people who can sew and make things. So very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Chantelle, thank you so much for your time. This wraps it up, and I'm sure people will enjoy hearing you and getting to know you and what you do. And we will look forward to what APMA Atlantic Books is putting out soon. And now you have another face that is behind the magic. So thanks again. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks, Abna.